This is the Che Guevara monument in Santa Clara.
We were cycling around central Cuba and we soon got to Santa Clara, which is where Che Guevara is buried.
Che Guevara, an Argentinian doctor, was an iconic revolutionary. He died at age 39, murdered by the CIA in Bolivia.
In this plaque, he says, "I feel such a patriot of Latin America, of whichever country, that I would deliver my life for the liberation of any country of Latin America, without asking anything from anyone, without demanding anything, without exploiting anyone." Because of Che Guevara, Cuba today has one doctor for every 150 people in the population. That's 10 times as many doctors as England. But it was time for us to get back on the road.
I don't have much water left. That's all. And there's lots of vultures circling ahead, waiting for me.
Cuba is about half the size of the UK, but with a population of only 11 million. That afternoon we arrived in Remedios, which is about 50 kilometres north of Santa Clara, not far from the north coast of Cuba. It is a colourful town with lovely casas particulares.
In Cuba there are two currencies, two different pesos, the national peso and the convertible peso. And a convertible peso is worth about $1, and the national pesos are there's 25 national pesos to one convertible peso.
Remedios has a lovely square.
I just bought 5 little lovely pokes of roasted salted peanuts from an old half-blind man for 1 convertible Cuban peso, which he was thrilled with. And the other thing about these nuts is that they are the only nuts I have found so far in Cuba. I haven't seen any nuts in any of the supermarkets. The supermarkets tend to have like the basics, packets and tins.
Back at the guest house, however, the food was amazing, with a delicious lobster feast. The next day we had another 70k cycle onto Sancti Spiritus.
We're resting in a bus shelter now because it's the burning, broiling heat outside. I'm just waiting for a cloud to come along. There's the bikes. I've cycled 55k today and it's just 1:15 and now I'm just on my last legs. I've just been bitten by an ant in the bush. It's very sore on my leg. What do you have to say about this apocalypse type holiday?
At least it wasn't a rattlesnake.
Luckily there's no poisonous snakes in Cuba, so I know it wasn't a snake.
But the vultures are circling ahead though, I can see.
The vultures.
Lots of vultures.
The vultures are permanently circling ahead.
Sancti Spiritus was a pleasant enough town, with another amazing breakfast in our casa particulare.
Look what I've woken up to this morning. Breakfast on our own private terrace. ¿Cómo estás, Sean?
It's very nice. There'll be fuel to last us the day on the road.
Today we're heading to Trinidad, and tomorrow I'm going to have a beach day and be like a normal tourist. I'm just having a little sit down. Cuba is super hot for cycling, really humid. It's the end of November, and last year apparently it didn't get any cooler in December. I think it's in the shade, high 20s, and in the sun in the 30s, and really humid. So I'm constantly dripping with sweat. Lovely.
But by the evening we got to a really beautiful spot back on the south coast, just past the town of Trinidad.
This is La Boca, just on the south coast near Trinidad. our first beach.
The next morning we got a taxi into Trinidad, which is a nice, colourful, bustly town with some great cafes. We managed to find a guy on the street selling 2 peso scratch cards to get internet. To date, until 2019, Cuba has been incredibly, largely without internet.
We're cycling from La Boca to Playa Ancon, which is just about 6k down the coast. Very nice cycle route. Absolutely gorgeous here. You can see why all the tourists are here. And then we're going to have a beach afternoon.
After 4 hard days cycling, I got an afternoon on a really beautiful beach with a lovely cafe and umbrellas. And they even had a nice coffee machine.
The beaches on the south coast of Cuba are incredible. The water, the colour of the water is just so blue. Turquoise, it's turquoise. And the sun is glorious. And there's a lot of unspoilt coastline on the south coast.
We then cycled on to Playa Girón, and 10 kilometres further north is Punta Perdes, a very low-key but lovely dive centre in the shape of a boat where you can spend the day snorkeling. So far, the coral is still alive in Cuba.
People have free healthcare, free education, free houses. But the thing they don't have is cash to buy stuff, and which a person needs. Like, people just need to feel they can buy stuff.
We had another lovely dinner that night in our homestay. Cars in Cuba are really expensive, and even a car 30 years old can cost the equivalent of 20,000 euros. There was a whole day of very heavy rain, and we had a long way to go, so we got a taxi back up to the north coast. I wanted to wind my window up, but had to ask the driver, as there was only one handle to share between all 4 windows.
We've just arrived in Varadero, and this is the beach. It was very rainy today. We were really lucky, actually. We got a taxi from Playa Larga up to Varadero, and it rained really heavily for quite a lot of the way. Yesterday there was a lot of rain, very heavy rain, and it was stormy. And today, after the rain, it's really cool. It's only 22 degrees. It's beautiful temperature now, and so we're up here at the beach. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Interestingly, Cuba is ranked number 1 in the world on a recent country sustainability index. After a night in Varadero, we started cycling back towards Havana, west, along the north coast. Cuba gets regular hurricanes, but has a very sophisticated yet low-tech hurricane prevention strategy, which saves lives, unlike the other countries in the Caribbean. This concrete block was blown here by a hurricane the year before.
Amazing hurricane prevention strategy where nobody dies in their hurricanes. Almost every year they have a hurricane, and the only people that die are people that refuse to follow the law and go to hurricane shelters.
We took our bikes on a short ferry ride for the last leg into Havana. I have to say also that I didn't see a single homeless person on our whole trip around central Cuba, either in the countryside or the cities. Back in Old Havana that afternoon, we came across a circus troupe on stilts. After Fidel Castro, with some relaxation on laws of capitalism, lots of small businesses are now springing up in Old Havana. Decades of trade embargoes have left the capital pretty derelict, and lack of commodities and internet have left a lot of people discontented. Though strangely, Cuban doctors are a key export, producing an annual revenue of 11 billion, which is almost 4 times as much as from tourism.